Hello and welcome to episode 121 of the Talking Wednesday podcast. We finally got all three hosts back together. Dex joined by Punk and Worko. Yes. Worko looking for the audio listeners like he has literally just put his face straight into some beetroot, and for some reason this man took Factor 50 sun cream to Wembley and has somehow managed to get burnt more than I've ever seen anyone get burnt on their face in quite some time by just sitting down somewhere. Was that, Jack?
Well, actually, the comedic answer to why I look like this is that I'm doing my best Barnsley fan impression after we beat them in the last minute of extra time at Wembley, and I will drink it in. I will drink in the tears. I will drink in the sour grapes as much as I possibly can because it's glorious.
Please direct all hatred Barnsley fans to @WorkoTV on his Twitter account.
Yes. Yeah. Because I'll just do the Josh Windass and I'll just reply with real, blunt sarcasm to them all. It's great. I actually really find that entertaining to do that when people do send any crap my way.
But what's the real reason?
The real reason is I was cricket scoring for my cricket club, and I actually did put Factor 50 on my face, believe it or not. The UV rays were just... No, genuinely, I had Factor 50 on my face and on my arms, and I literally, for audio listeners, you won't see this, but I look like a rhubbarb sweet, or whatever.
Yeah, that's awful.
You know, the pink and beige... Yeah.
But
that's
Jack,
awful.
Jack, did you reapply it? Because you do realise just putting it on once doesn't do a thing.
I did. And it just burned through it. And
you didn't have a cream mix-up, did you?
Oh, no.
Well, we know if he'd had a cream mix-up, if it was Vita, he'd had no beard left. Or eyebrows.
I like how you think Jack's just got Veet on the side. But yeah. Also joined by Punk. How are you, my friend?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. It's been a good week. Spoke to you on Friday, but it's been a good weekend getting some things done and just planning stuff. It's been interesting.
Excellent. How's your week been other than that, Jack? Other than the sunburn?
It's been okay. I've had some very good news. Some very interesting little good news. But yeah, just kind of... I don't know why,
You're pregnant?
No.
Jake is, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we didn't actually mention this in the last podcast.
No,
not him technically. It would be his wife. But just saying, Jake is expecting a baby. And I was going to say I don't know what the gender is, but you don't know what the gender is. You're not finding out, are you? No. So congratulations on that. I thought I'd say it on the podcast for the people who don't follow you on social media. So you're a second child. How are you feeling about that, Jake?
Nervous again, and it explains why I've been absolutely snapping at the lads off behind the scenes, because I have been an absolute nightmare to work with the last couple of weeks.
I've never seen him like it. Ever.
He's been such a diva. He's actually been such a diva out of nowhere. He's never like this, and he's turned into the biggest prima donna ever.
I think it's that mixture of the entire fear of going, we planned for this and everything fine, but we're really bad at planning, me and my wife, because let's have a child a week before the other child's birthday.
Nice.
Didn't think that one through.
I just think you need some other hobbies around that sort of time of year, clearly.
Yeah.
Why not take up crocheting?
Play some video games or something. What was your good news if you want to share on here, Jack? If it's not podcast,
I'm not allowed to.
Good news, you don't have to.
I'm not allowed to.
That's fine. I know what it is.
I'm legally signed off on not allowed to tell anybody.
Yeah,
so.
we know.
I know. I know what that is. Oh, we know what it is. It's almost one of those things where, when Jake he did the announcement, I think we were the first people he told, or very close to it. And I genuinely nearly did the bridesmaid thing on Facebook. You know, when someone says they're engaged, and so glad everyone else gets to share the secret. Yes. I was like, should I do that?
Just to legally cover my arse, right? I have not disclosed any details about the project. I have just said that I am in it, and I am allowed to say that I am in it, because many of the other people in this project are also saying they're in it, but nothing more than that. But I don't want to say what it is because if I do, I feel like the
We
universe will take it
glazed
away
over
from
it,
me.
Jack. Just
No, I
stop
know.
talking.
Okay.
We didn't say anything about it. We let you say it's private, and then
But
we
just-
moved on.
I know how. Look, I know how
You
NDAs
two know what it
work.
is, and yes,
Yes, I know how NDAs work. You don't get done for talking about
yes.
an NDA. Just calm
Okay.
down,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Jack's actually doing something acting wise. You can say that, and that's
Yeah.
cool. Well done, Jack.
Awesome.
Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's nothing mocap because you currently look
No.
like because they'd have to use quite a few shaders to bring down that shade of red.
It'll
They would.
be mocap. It'll be the next FIFA FC football character development lot. You know, when it all runs badly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, be the receptionist on the FIFA cutscenes. Anyway,
God.
good to have you both back. I can't believe I'm saying that. I don't know if I fully believe it, but yeah, Jack, you've finally got a PC that works, have
Yeah,
you?
I have.
It's the
I
same.
have. And although I didn't get a Mac, the guy that repaired it was Scottish, so his name could have been Muck something, for all I know.
Fair enough.
So that's as close to a Mac as I'm going right now. Okay,
You know, next time I see you, I've got a drawer full of Apple stickers. I'm just going to give you one. You can just put an Apple sticker on that computer and go done.
You're gonna do what?
I did wonder why
basically-
you've got Live, Laugh, Love, by the way, on the wall of your studio there. Sorry. Anyway, as you were saying, James.
Don't
sorry.
do that to him.
No.
I'm not even using a Mac for this. I'm using a laptop, but it's all integrated. You just decide to put things together and they go bang. That's the problem. But yeah, today's episode, we're still a football podcast, even though we chat nonsense for the first 10 minutes as always, is basically going to be covering the retain list and our sort of extended thoughts on that one, because there's quite a lot that goes into that. But also we're going to start talking about potentially who we should be looking at early in this transfer window. Now, there's a lot of names that we have gathered, and I am going to hold some off for next episode, I think, because there's a lot to talk about there and too much for one episode. So we will break this down as we... Basically, the entire Talking Wednesday team, we've actually done some work, and we've all been doing the... We've been looking into it like we used to back when I wasn't so busy, guys, and I wasn't saying that every week.
No.
We've looked into some... We've basically been scouts.
Yeah.
Or looked into some
we
probability.
were pretty close on the retain list, what we did on the podcast.
Yes, we were. I nearly edited it in. I nearly edited the, like reading out the retain list, but
Yeah.
I didn't bother because we were both doing videos on it anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, appreciate your support on these podcasts recently and on the general support on this channel. I think Jake's channel will be the same.
Mine.
And then
Yeah.
Worko doesn't do anything at the minute, so there is that. He's just gone, oh no, I'm not doing anything anymore because my PC went bye-bye.
Yes.
And then he had a big cry.
Yes, I did actually cry a little bit.
You were so
Admittedly.
angry. I've never, he was like, I'm so sorry, guys. I can't believe this.
You know what the best
So
part is?
sorry.
You know the best part is? He's had no PC, and that's what he uses to play computer games on. So he's had nothing to do apart from watch rubbish TV.
No
Basically.
comment. So there is. Don't worry, that was an inside joke, but I think it went over both of their heads. That I'll tell them about
it
later. Cool, guys. Feel like that guy was just like he'd been left, with the spot. Basically, you in the vlog, Jack, when you kept talking and I cut you off.
Yeah.
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 So let's just go straight into the retain list. So for those who haven't seen, the Owls can confirm our player retain list following the conclusion of the 2022-23 season. Dennis Adeniran, Jaden Brown, Sam Duran, Ryan Galvin, Ben Hennigan, Jack Hunt and David Stockdale will be released upon expiry of their current contracts. Wednesday have exercised options to retain Barry Bannon, George Byers, Lee Gregory, Dominic Iorfa, Liam Palmer and Josh Windass. New contract offers has been made to Fisayo Delibashiru, Marvin Johnson and Callum Patterson. Aidan Flint and Reece James leave Hillsborough following their respective loans. The Owls would like to thank all departing players for their services following a memorable campaign, and we wish them the very best for the future. Right, the first thing I'd like to do, guys, I'd like to break this down in order. So we're going to talk about the departing players and our thoughts on that, and then we will go into the exercised options and then the contract offers. Okay, so let's try not to overlap the sections. So I will start with David Stockdale, actually. We will do that in reverse because David Stockdale has actually just got a club straight away. He has signed for York City and he's going to be a player, but he's also going to be their head of recruitment. Now, that's slightly sad in the fact that I'd like to have seen him come into the setup at Wednesday, but however, if he's going down that aspect, there might be a place for him here. And I will say he's somebody that engages with the fans. For me, that was quite a sad one to see us lose that sort of personality. I want to sort of put it to you, Jake, first. Are we in danger of losing big personalities like this, that the team morale will take a hit next season? Because if you think like when Semedo and the likes left and we lost that feeling around the club, is David Stockdale one of them? What are your initial thoughts on that?
He is one of those ones that was able to, when things didn't seem to be going right, just be able to get things going in the right direction, like getting people motivated, the joker at the pack. Yeah, we still technically got them with the likes of Volks and hopefully Callum Patterson, but I think he was a huge part of the camaraderie in that squad. And just having him on the sideline, talking to players or talking to what they might do was a big help for us this season. And I think there's a lot of stuff David Stockdale did behind the scenes that we don't find out about. And I think when it comes to the day that we do, we're going to appreciate him even more. Now, the role he gone and got at York City makes sense. It's the club he started at, being a goalkeeper, but the head of recruitment. That could benefit us, though, in terms of him going, hey, there's a good young lad down at Wednesday who needs a loan belt. Let me give Darren a ring and we'll see if we can get him some game times. So in that sense, that still could help us.
Yeah, I think we do a lot of National League loans, actually. Well, we did in League One, so it's one of those things that if you think anybody's going to go anywhere in the National League now, it'll probably be York, and it's on the doorstep, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it would make sense. Jack, your thoughts on Stockdale leaving and morale and the likes?
I could see it. I could understand that because of his age and because he's probably transitioning into his post-playing career. I mean, to be honest as well, like when I was there with you at Wembley, he sort of took a knee at the very end where all the players were sort of off running, going mental near us fans. The final whistle obviously went and he just kind of took a knee and kind of knelt down and was just drinking it all in almost as though he was retiring there and then. And I saw
what you pointed out and said to him. You said, I remember your exact words actually. You said, that's the look of the man who's going to retire. He hasn't done that, but he was definitely drinking it. I think it's probably like his last memory of that and finally got something with it. Because he was saying in the interviews recently, you know, in the build up to this, that his kids are at an age now where he wants a memory with his kids where he can remember something like that. Yeah. And we've been able to give him that. And that's great for us to be able to do that.
Also, think of last season as well, with that heartache being there and not being on the winning team. I wonder if that played a part of it as well.
But it makes sense as well, because that's where he's from. Like, that's his boyhood club. Maybe not, I don't know if it's who he supported growing up, but like that's the club of where he's from. And he's gone back there again. And I mean, he's even said when he signed for them that he remembers playing for them and they've got a brand new stadium now and they were in real trouble when he was, you know, financially, whatever, when he was playing for them. A good few years ago when in his youth, and now he gets to play at this it's a brand new club virtually, and it just makes a lot of sense, I think, for him personally, if he's transitioning into that sort of role. It seems like he's actually taken a lot more responsibility on than just being a coach, like, because the head of recruitment is what is the heartbeat almost a bit sort of a football club, because if you don't recruit well, you don't do well. And so that club's been on its knees for quite some time. And maybe he gives a fresh perspective of who they need to bring in. And
yeah, I think it's a great signing for them as well, because he's just dropped down 2 leagues.
Yeah.
Right? So in terms of a player, he's going to be fantastic for them.
He's effectively their Ben Foster. Like Wrexham got Ben Foster. He's effectively the Ben Foster for them kind of thing in that.
It's a football manager-esque signing, isn't it? Almost like, oh, we'll give him the staff role, but it's good. I think Stockdale's probably got at least another year in him, so it makes perfect sense to me for him to do that. And we'll say it's sad to see him leave the club. It probably makes sense for him at this stage in the career to go and do that and get. I don't know what we're doing in the keeper position. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but if we've got Dawson, it was a case of he'd have just kept pushing Dawson. For me, he didn't get back in ahead of Dawson purely because of his age and the fact that we're trying to build Dawson up. But I think the influence he had around those players is going to be massively missed. So we've just got to be careful not to let the morale drop, which, to be honest, when I look at the rest of this retain list, I'm not too concerned about, because we've been a bit more generous than I thought we would. So there is that side of it. But yeah, all the best to Stockdale. And if we do ever do guests, former footballers as a guest on this podcast, Stockdale, if you ever want to be the first one, mate, give me a heads up, and we can definitely arrange that. I won't put Jack on it because I'm not going to do that to you.
I think the other thing you've got as well, look at the speech he did after Cheltenham, and I think that must have hit home with some of the players, going, we've got someone here who wants to get this done. He hasn't got much left. I wonder if that gave him a bit of a kick up the backside, going, let's do it for Stockdale.
Yeah. Right, moving on to Jack Hunt, somebody who's had 2 spells at Wednesday. I'll start with you, Jack, on this one. Jack Hunt's obviously been released. What are your thoughts initially?
I think
not initial anymore.
Again, I think you can. I think you can say it about a few of them. Where I don't think, had we not won that game against Barnsley and stayed in League One, I don't think he would have been released, because I think it's probably he's at that point of his career where I don't think his legs are there anymore. Like had this been Jack Hunt of his previous spell with us, keep him. Absolutely. He was fine back then. He was instrumental in us doing well in both those seasons. But I just don't think he's got the pace anymore to keep up with Championship
Not
wingers.
For 90 minutes. I think he can still come on. He's not as fast as he was, but he can still come on and do a run.
Yeah.
But he's a lot more strategic. You can tell his game management in his mind now.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like the player, but that's what players do. They get older and they develop in a certain way. Jack Hunt used to be that player that had blistering pace, that would run down, beat a couple of men and get a cross in. He was great at that. And as you get older, I don't think he'd have been able to do that in the Championship. That would have been my concern with it.
Yeah, that's basically what that. I just don't think he can keep up anymore in terms of how he used to be. I just don't think he's still got that. So I think it's a wise decision. As sad as it is, given how clearly attached he is to Sheffield Wednesday, I think actually we've lost a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans in these players that have been released as well. Because a lot of them, sure, they weren't obviously boyhood Wednesday fans, but over the course of this season and the last season, they've grown to absolutely adore this club, and I think they probably always will. Just, dear God, don't do a Paul Heckingbottom, be a Wednesday Wembley like icon, and then decide to go fully like anti-Wednesday in your post-playing career, please. Because that's what he did.
Gonna happen though when the jobs he's had are leave Barnsley and Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic.
Jake, your thought on Jack Hunt?
He came and did the job he said he wanted to do to get us back in the Championship. And he's been an excellent servant once again. And he's shown us that when he does come off the bench, he's got really good pace at times. And I think possibly for him, getting it over the line was a kind of good swan song, because he didn't leave last time with a really good memory at Wednesday. He had the final. He didn't really want to leave then anyway, but we had to get rid of him for the FFP. I think Jack Hunt's the kind of player, if he wants to stay local around the Yorkshire area, like a Harrogate, a Doncaster, Bradford, something like that, going down to League Two, he'd do really well there. Because he's got the
I actually think he could do a job for a Barnsley as a squad player.
Portsmouth. If he wants to go all the way down south, he'd be ideal for like Portsmouth or somebody like that.
Yeah,
I do think he can still do it at League One level. I just don't think he's a starter for the top end. Yeah. So I think he's either a squad player for somebody up in the upper end of League One, like he was for us. He came in and he can have he has a really good half hour, Jack Hunt, I've noticed, when he comes on.
That's why I thought maybe if he wants to be a starter League Two, because that experience is vital that he's got.
Yeah. I don't think he has to drop down, to be fair. It depends. He can either be... He could try and get another promotion on his bat and go to League Two, or he could sort of probably sit mid-table starter League One, Or again, he was crucial in terms of penalties for us this season. So if he wants to, I genuinely think a move like Barnsley wouldn't be completely off the cards for him. Be quite funny, wouldn't it? But other than that,
I think the only thing
Ben Hennigan.
that goes against Barnsley's ethos, though. They don't rarely sign over 30 players.
Yeah, well, they probably needed some experience because
True.
it caught with them, didn't it?
Their entire squad, other than Norwood, their striker, is basically the same age as me.
Yeah.
24.
47.
I was doing my research ahead of the playoff final. I was having a little look at it, and literally their entire squad are in their early 20s, other than Norwood.
That's all right. Your research didn't mean anything. You didn't have a PC to be on the pod, so move on.
Why are we being so mean to him? I think it's because, before this podcast, he came in, and the first thing he did when he came in was start trying to wind us up and be stupid.
Yeah.
And I was like...
Yeah.
I was like, Jack, it's 10:30 in the morning. We've only just literally finished documentation. Please stop.
And to be fair, you've had 2 episodes where you've not had me to roast, so it's sort of like a build-up.
Yeah, but James had 2 days with you.
Now. Yeah.
I did have 2 days with him. Oh, mate.
You've painted such a bad picture of me, by the way, with what I'm like as a hotel room companion. With
it's purely because, Jack, if anybody wants to sleep, the fact that you snore louder than anything I have ever heard on this earth. Like, I thought, when we used to go on family holidays, I thought, my dad was the worst human being at snoring ever. Jack, there's sort of a low growl to your snore that just shakes the entire room. We had an industrial... I brought an industrial metal fan.
PF4? Because you booted that up, it sounded like a jet engine.
It was worse than that. Honestly, God. I had one of those huge metal fans because I brought it down and I was like, no matter, even if he's a bit of a snorer, we'll be fine, right? So I put this huge metal fan on, and he's actually rattling the room with his snoring, and just genuinely, I was looking at the pillow, because he sort of sprawled out on his bed, and I saw that he'd got a pillow on his chest, and I was like, if I just pick that up and lift it, it would all stop, right?
It would all stop.
It was
now.
almost when
it could all end. We can finish it all now.
It was even worse the second night when
Where's Jack? I left him in London. Oh, all right.
The day of the actual, game, I had 4 hours sleep, right?
Oh, so that's why you were a bit cranky for the whole day.
No, but what's even worse is the next day I was up, because of that day, I was doing the vlog and I was up until about 3 a.m. editing, right? And then as I tried to get to sleep, and I literally said to it about 3 a.m., I said, Jack, you're going to need to turn over, mate, because there's something that's just...
It's like...
I've never heard anything like it. Yeah, genuinely.
It was like,
I will happily go to a football trip with you again, Jack, but we are not getting a twin room. It's because we never expected it to happen. I booked a twin room on the off chance. And then, I'm having my own space.
You know when an air conditioning unit is broken and it needs cleaning out because it's slurping?
Yeah.
There's a slight bit of that in my snoring as well. It's like...
Apologies, headphone listeners.
Sorry, headphone listeners, for that awful bit of ASMR. But anyway,
just feel sorry for me. It was horrific. If Wednesday hadn't won, I was saying this, the amount of expense that trip cost me, and the fact I had to put up with that for 2 days. If Wednesday had not done it, I'd never be going again. I have to say that I would, but Jesus Christ. Right. Back onto the news show, back onto the retain list, the actual topic. Ben Hennigan. Ben Hennigan, obviously, is one of them that's been released. Maybe think unlucky with injuries. Would that be your sentiment, Jake?
Unlucky with injuries, yes, but we never actually knew what his contract situation was. It was one of the ones that came in. We actually didn't know what the deal was, so maybe it was just a 1-year deal. But he seems very gutted by all the social media posts he's done. But give him credit, when he came on, he was an absolute warrior when he played for us. I remember the game where he bandaged up, wanted to carry on. I think that injury was really unlucky for him. And I think if he has stayed fit and shown a bit more in that sense after the injury, he probably would have got another deal for me because he was a solid player and did well. But credit to Wednesday, the club, they're allowing him to stay and do his rehabilitation once it's all done. He's allowed to use the facilities and get himself back to being match fit and get ready for another club. But he'll go down as one of those signings where when he came in, everyone was very much like, he's from a relegation season, he's not going to do that well, but he's left becoming quite a fan favourite, and I think a lot of people are gutted he's gone.
Yeah, I think I do understand why he's gone in that sense, and I understand why people are maybe thinking he is, there was a potential there for him to still be a great player, but I've got the sort of feeling of like an entire season of injury, pretty much. He started really, really well, but we've now stepped up. He got relegated with Wimbledon, right? And then we signed him on a free. And then he did really, really well for us at that level, but then we got released. It's almost as if, Jack, that you can't take that risk when you're stepping up a higher level. Is that what you'd think the club have maybe looked at it with?
Yeah, I think it's that. That's a big part of it, obviously. But I also think, again, it's his age. He's 29. We've already got Michael Owekwe and Dominic Iorfa that are around that age themselves. And I think that's probably as well what they've noticed over the course of the season is our defence has been a load older than a lot of the teams that have successfully pressed us.
Iorfa's 27, by the way. He's actually a really good age.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. But again, it's an age thing as possibly in as part of that as well. That longevity. I think there's more of an outlook of a long-term longevity with any signings that we make now and signings that we've got at the club as well. I say that we have released Dennis Adeniran and Jayden Brown, who are very young, and also Sam Durrant. However, I think we'll talk about that in a minute anyway. But
yeah, we will.
Ben Hennigan. But Ben Hennigan, I think it's more like it was probably a Swiss Army knife or a stopgap to get the job done, and then to move him on. Maybe
I think one of them had to go. Right. So you've got Owekwe, who is 30. You've got Dominic Iorfa is 27, and then Ben Hennigan is 29. You're not going to get rid of Famio because he showed real promise and he's younger.
Yeah.
In terms of centre backs, Flint was never our signing, but he potentially could be somebody we pick up. I think you start on the basis of having 3 centre backs in Iorfa, Owekwe, and Famio, and I'm not forgetting anyone, am I?
Brennan.
No. Well, Kieran Brennan, yeah.
Brennan comes back off loan, but in terms of actual ones at the club, you have that core. If you get rid of someone like Hennigan and Flint's off, you open up a couple of slots. Open up a couple of slots for quality to come in that centre back or cover, quality or cover. And if he decides he wants to play out from the back, then he probably looks for players that are going to fit that system a little bit more and that he knows can do it. It's also I think it's just a situation of you're not going to release Owekwe because he's had a couple of knocks this season. He's been out for a little bit.
Yeah,
he's also
you can't release him because he's on a exactly. It was 2 for Owekwe, wasn't it? And 3 for Smith.
Yeah, 2 for Owekwe, sorry, and 3 for Smith.
Yeah.
They both came
that's
at the
fine.
same time.
But yeah, I think he is unfortunate with his injury because he could have been something more. But I think he's not going to have too much trouble finding a club, and I wish him the best on that one. He's coming into the prime of a centre-back's career. He's in it. So he needs to stay fit and kick on. Sam Durrant, Ryan Galvin, are you disappointed by any of these, Jack? The younger players not making it in properly?
Well, I will just add at the end of the Ben Hennigan segment as well, there is a rumour now that he's going to Oxford United.
That'd be a good move for him.
So, yeah.
It happened with...
I think, yeah. Very good move.
It happened. Who did it happen with? Who was it? Who went there?
Oh, Sam Winnall, ages ago.
No.
And also...
was it Chris Maguire?
There was a centre-back. What's his name? We sold him.
Jordan Thornley?
Thornley, that's the one.
He went to Blackpool, didn't he?
But he was at Oxford last season, I believe.
Oh, yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was on loan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'd be a good move for him. But yeah, Sam Durant, Ryan Galvin.
I think in the case of Ryan Galvin, he's not kicked on enough for Darren Moore to be happy with him. But again, I'd say that had we stayed in League One, he'd probably have got a deal and then done what he did with Brennan and send him again out on loan to a League Two team. But it's probably the same thing with Alex Hunt that's happened to Alex Hunt. He's not kicked on enough for him to say, yes, you have a first team place or whatever. Or maybe there's just plans in the pipeline to bring in more left backs that means that he wouldn't get in the side at all and he wouldn't have a single shout to get in the side. So,
well, Ryan Galvin's 22. I'm a bit surprised with
Sam Durant because he looks quite handy. But again, maybe if we stopped in League One, he would have got another deal. But I don't know.
I'm looking at their careers right now.
Yeah.
22 years old. For Galvin's the one that stands out, and I don't know if you agree on this one, Jake. At 22, you need to be kicking on and trying to get in and around the squad. He obviously came to us from Wigan. He's only had it's National League loans for him.
Yeah.
You know, he's not. For whatever reason, the development team haven't seen him kick on enough to even get features. So that one's not a shock for me. Let's talk about Ryan Galvin specifically, and then we'll talk about Durant a little bit more, Jake. So do you agree with my sentiment on Galvin? It is at that age where it just wasn't plausible?
Yeah, Galvin's at that age where he needs 13 football now. And I think the issue is he wasn't really knocking on the door. Whenever we've seen him in the cup games, he was okay. There was nothing really that special about his game. There's something I think, right, we should get him in. Because that was a position where we did need cover for. And he could have quite easily stepped up. And I think when you get to a certain age at 22, it's that point where you have to be knocking on the first team door. We've got no room for sentiment anymore because we can't be doing that. He'll find a club. He's a very good player. He'll find a club. He'll probably do an Alex Hunt, go lower league and work his way up. But I think with Galvin, it makes sense. Durant, this is the one that confuses me. This is the one
we
that
only signed him last year.
Yeah, this is the one that really confuses me because we only got him last year. When he came on that little spell versus Derby, he looked decent. It's either got to be we're definitely bringing in someone younger who's a first team player, or we've gone, look, you come and done the job for us in the development squad. You had a little bit of a spell so we can see what we can, if there's anything there. But I thought this one would have been one that we kept because there was time to improve on him. But again, we're going up a different league. If we were in League One, he probably would have stayed. I think a lot of these are down to we're going up to a different league, which is a different level completely. He reminds me a bit of the Charles Hennigan deal.
Charles Hagan.
When he went to Wycombe Wanderers and didn't really do anything. The one that's always done well since he left is Adedowen, who went to Accrington Stanley. And he looked like he could step up and do stuff and go and play. So I think on this one, I think it's a case of we like what we saw originally, but we're not going to be able to give you game time now, kind of thing.
I think if you look at the fact he was here for a year, I think that one's quite cut and dry. They didn't see enough in him to keep. They brought him in for a year. They probably expected something slightly different, or it could just be a casualty of promotion. But a 1-year deal is quite telling. A 1-year deal on that, and he's released straight away. Maybe it's a situation of him like you can go and find yourself some like League 2 football, maybe League 1, League 2 football, and see if you can build your way up. But it's a weird one, that one. Probably one that wasn't a shock. And I'll start with you, Jake, on this one. Jayden Brown.
Yeah, this wasn't a shock for me. I think when he came in, he was brought in as a free transfer because it was in that period where we couldn't actually spend any money. I think he came in to try and do a job. I think he did okay at spells, and he had that period where he came in bit of this season, played really well, but didn't really step up. He was always felt like he was a bit of a squad player behind the scenes kind of thing, and if needed, if there's an injury, we'll bring him on. But again, it was a position where we had players who could play there who weren't necessarily that position. And if you're not like banging down the door to get into that squad, It just seems like you're quite comfortable of being that kind of squad player than being a first-team player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I'll hand over to you in a second, Jack, but I think with Jayden Brown, for me, it's more of a case of he didn't do very well last season. I think that was the big thing. But this season, when he was called upon, he stepped up. And again, it's one of those, if we'd have stayed in League One, I actually could see him playing quite a little bit more next season, because towards the latter end of the season, he showed promise. I think it's one of those situations where I think he's about 23, if I'm not mistaken.
24, I think.
24 now. He will be able to go and get a decent squad now and probably get a starting role. He's shown at the end of his contract that he can play, and he can definitely play at the level that we were at coming into that squad. He was just behind, someone like Marvin Johnson, who's probably a little bit better offensively, at this current stage of the careers. So I don't think Jayden Brown will have too much trouble getting another club. Any thoughts, Jack?
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. I think he'll be a great signing for someone like Leyton Orient that have just come up into League One. A club like that. I mean, I know he's a Southern lad, I believe, originally. So I think that might be a good move for him. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain that he's from down south somewhere. But
do you think he could not get a slightly higher club in League One than that, or do you think it's more of a case it could be a signing that kicks them on?
Again, yeah, I think Leyton Orient have got ambition to get back to the Championship at least as soon as possible, and I think it might be an ideal signing for somebody like them.
Yeah,
it's like you. I just don't think that he had enough burning desire to be in that. Like, he didn't have the real fire in his belly to say, no, I should be starting and I want to work as hard as I can to start. And I think that's what Darren Moore wants to see from the players that he brings in and that he's got. And that's probably why, again, he's probably got released, because he was just comfortable being a squad player.
He is from London as well, so you're right about that, going back down south.
I don't know if towards the latter end of the season it is more of a case he was comfortable with it, or because I will sort of push back on that in terms of, I think it's more of a case of everybody being for the cause with our promotion push.
Yeah.
And it was more of a case of that sort of attitude. And I actually think it's one of those things on this retain list. I'm not going to really be too critical of players leaving in a certain aspect, because we all had that moment. So there is going to be that in there. It's not going to be as harsh as previous. But no, interesting thoughts on that one.
The
controversial one for me, go on quick.
On the retain list, anyone on this retain list who has been let go will not have that situation and find it difficult to find a club. They come from a team that's done the playoff miracle and then won it. So everyone will want that kind of motivation that they've got to put in their team, because they'll see that and go, we want that.
Yeah, completely. It's one of those things that it's probably one of the best retain lists to be on.
Yeah.
You don't, weirdly, a relegated retain list and a promotion retain list have got about the same weight, because if you're on a relegated retain list, clubs in the division you've just left think they can nab you, decently, and if you're promoted, it's the same, that the division you've just left are like, oh, they're available. So there's that side of it. The one that's probably a little bit controversial, I don't know what, I'm going to start with you on this one, Jack. Dennis Adeniran, and I can finally say it, and he's gone. Go on.
His injury record is what has caused that, I think. He had I remember when we signed him and everyone was raving about him last season, and then he got injured for quite a long time. And then he came back and looked all right, and then he got injured again for quite a long time. And I think it's the injury record that has probably let him down, because it just also says to me that's releasing him with the amount of potential he clearly has, even now, still has. I don't think the potential is gone. I think he's going to end up... I wouldn't say it's going to come back and bite us in the backside when he plays really well for another team against us, but I can also see him really kicking on somewhere else. But I just think it's the injury record that's let him down, that it's maybe made them think we don't want somebody that's injured that much in the squad, or we want to cut this injury proneness out of the squad, because that's clearly been an issue, as we've seen this season, because it caused the big blip that made us drop off from the top spot. But I think it's all down to his injury record, that more than anything.
Yeah, I actually concur because I think there's a hell of a player in there if he can keep fit.
Oh God, yeah.
Jake, what are your thoughts?
Same. His injury record is the situation. If you look at the 21-22 season, he was out he missed 22 games. And missing 22 games and then having the same thing happen again this season hasn't helped the core. But when he had been called upon, he's been really good in that midfield or played on the wing. He's had such ability to go forward. He seems like he's another one of these Stockdale. He's great to have in the dressing room. He's a great person to have around and get people up when people maybe not doing so well. The rumours are that he could be going to Bradford, and if Bradford get him, that would be really good for their midfield.
He said fake news.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that's fake news, but it wouldn't surprise me if someone like that came in for him. I still think he can do it in League One, but whoever brings him on into their club, they're gonna have to do a very good medical just to make sure it's all gone. But the thing is, this is what happens. We have players like this, they are injured for us, and then they go and have cracking careers where they don't have any injuries. It's just the Wednesday way, sadly.
Yeah, it's one of those, if he can keep fit, it's just a case of finding it. But it's also we can't take the risk on him, but another club that can potentially take the risk on him and they get half a season out of him, it might be worth it. I'm hoping he is, for his career, I'm hoping he isn't one of them injury-prone players for the rest of his career, because you do get those players that really struggle, and you sort of take, and could be, I think Dennis Adeniran could quite kind of very easily be a championship player if he was consistent in terms of his injury record, because the potential's there, but it's just a case of him sorting that side of it out. But I am sad to see that one. I'm going to quickly just jump to this one because the controversy that's surrounding it is people are saying, well, why have we released Dennis Adeniran and we've offered a contract to Fisayo Delibashiru? Now, we will talk about our thoughts on Fisayo Delibashiru, but I just want to say straight off that, and this has also been said across social media if you follow it, we needed to offer a contract to Delibashiru in case he decides to leave. So if you haven't been following the story, there's been links with him. There's been international links for him. There's been, domestic interest in him as well. If he decides to go on a free and we've not offered him a deal, we get absolutely nothing. But if we've offered him a contract, I would like to say that that contract might not be fantastic. So if we don't want him to stay necessarily, if Darren doesn't fancy him, I don't think the terms would be that good. However, I'd like to get your thoughts, Jake, on do you think it's a proper contract offer to develop Delibashiru under Darren Moore, or do you think it is just a sort of slightly reduced offer to what we potentially offer a player that we were serious about? Which one do you think it is?
I think it's the latter. I think it's one that we get the compensation. Even though Darren Moore wants him to stay, and I think Deli wants to stay himself, it's not helped this season. He started really well this season. And I mean really well. Looked like we've got a player there. Had a little bit of an injury, but nothing really. The one thing that was telling from this season was when Barry Bannon did like an interview with the club and was saying who's always late, and it's like, oh, it's Deli. It fits. It's like, that's not something you want. You want your players to be on time. And I wonder if that's something that kind of, in that, does he train well kind of thing? And then when he goes to play, he plays really well. I think if there's a deal there to be done for him and it's at the right terms, because I don't want us to offer him anything stupid just because he might be there. The problem is he had all this season to really do well and kick on. And I think there's a lot of agent talk that's happened here. And I think it just messed with his head. And I don't think that helps the situation. As much as people say, yes, why are we giving Fizz a contract then Adeniran? I think the thing with Fizz, there's a potential there. If he signs and wants to stay, we can sell him on for a fair bit of money because there is a player there when he gets his head sorted and he plays his football. For me, it's the mental side of the Deli game more than his actual playing side.
Jack?
Yeah, I concur. I mean, I can imagine actually the club just sort of saying, well, here's your contract offer. It's the same one we offered you a while ago. Take it or leave it. And I just sort of think that there's we all know that there's very clearly a really good player there with bags of potential. But the problem is he's not mentally disciplined anywhere nearly as enough as he should be. And it's almost like he needs someone to give him a kick up the backside and just to like mentor him and to get him into a more professional headspace. Because he's probably, given that he's come from the Manchester City Academy, and clearly a lot of people probably wanted to sign him then when we signed him. And he's probably had a lot of smoke blowing up his backside from many, many people saying how great he is. And he's probably come down with this sort of big I am attitude. I've come from the Man City Academy. I'm pedigree, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I think that that's probably not done him the world of good in terms of his mental state. And he just needs to get a bit more grounded and a bit more like professionalism drilled into him somehow. Whether that's but Darren Moore's the right manager to do that, because he will do that. He is definitely a man that can instill that into a player. But I just sort of think that if that's the professionalism that he's got, I think we need to tighten up on that sort of side of our squad and get more players in. Basically, I'd take the compensation. I'd say it's a shame that it didn't work out here, but I look forward to seeing how you develop in the future with somebody else. I'm
more on the side of now it's a case of, I think we'll have offered him a very similar contract as to what we offered before. I'm willing to take a punt in terms of the club, because there is a player in there for his age, and this is not me trying to blow further smoke up his arse, as you said, a lot of problems in there, Jack, and we don't know the ins and outs of it. We're going off what we've sort of inferred from the captain speaking and things like that. The power he has got and how good he is on the ball are great for his age, more than we have seen in our own academy products, and that is a element of coming through such a superior academy, right? And you see the world talents coming from there. It's the desire. It's when I've watched him, you watch how Barry Bannon runs for every opportunity. You want to be a top player, you have to run for every lost cause like that.
Yeah. And
there's been some times where I'm like, he sort of goes into something and he looks it too tactically and he thinks, there's a probability I'm not going to come out and get the ball on that occasion. So he backs off. He needs to be more aggressive and driven in those moments, I think. And that's a big sign of a mentality of a player. And I think the positive buzz around the club, he's in the right place for his development now. A championship Sheffield Wednesday, right? A squad player in that. I do think it is a case of we have offered it just to... It's probably the same deal as we've said, previously. I think it's one of those where we're covering our back if he decides to leave on a free. But if he does sign it, then there's a player in there to work under a manager who's a great man manager. And I do think if he can... I've said this all along with this player. He's got all the ability if he gets his head down. But there's so many players in the world of football that you say that about. And most of them don't make it or don't go anywhere near what they should. And it's more of a case of, does he want to be a player that's actually remembered in the game and develop into a successful career? Or does he want to be someone who sort of journeymans around, picks up the contract and collects the cash?
If you look at that midfield as well, he got so many good mentors in there who can help him in the likes of Volks and Bannon. You'd be picking the brains going, how do I improve here? What can I do here? If it's someone like a Bannon takes him under his wing, which it sounds like he has done a little bit this season, and goes, you come here, and actually takes on what's being said, he'll be a phenomenal player. I think he just needs to get his headspace right.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the exercised options then. So... we knew we were keeping Barry Bannon and Liam Palmer. We knew options had been extended there. We knew there was an option on Josh Windass. That's also been activated. Did not know there was one on Dom. Did you guys?
No.
Nope.
What do we think about Dom getting an extension on there? Because I personally would have offered him a contract.
I think it makes sense to give him the option for now, and then halfway through the season try and negotiate for better deals to then now be doing the championship.
I actually think it's a great bit of business, because if it's an option, it means it's probably on the same terms.
Yeah.
or with a slight promotion wage rise or something like that. But it's one of those things where that's a great financial decision because now you've bought yourself time to think while you've still got the player around and see if he does start well in the Championship. Jack?
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's a good thing to basically because he's obviously had a whole season long injury not that long ago. Didn't start when he came back as well as he probably has been in the past, but I think I think we need to reassess how good this is in January when he's had half a season, just to see maybe because maybe he might be someone that he gets let go at the end of next season. Who knows? But I just really, if he's back up to the levels that he was last time we were in the Championship, then absolutely keep him again. Extend his deal, whatever. But I not that long ago was saying maybe it's time for a fresh start for Dom. And I'm like 50-50. I'm really on the fence about that. Even now, I think it's good. It's a good thing for now that it's in uncharted territory again back in the Championship. But he may even get sold in January. Who knows? But I don't know.
I think
50-50 about it.
I think it's he'll possibly do better where the teams aren't always just parking the bus, and he's got a bit more freedom as well.
He's stepped up as well. He's stepped up, but he's also a confident player. You notice when he came back injured, he was getting back up to fitness, but his confidence was there. When he got his confidence, he's a cracking player.
I agree. Confidence player completely. Do you know the one I am surprised about, really? The fact we had an option on Lee Gregory.
I did not. The thing is, that option on Lee Gregory makes me think he knew about it, considering the conversation he had where he said, I'd love to sign a contract straight away if the club put me one in, but we're not in that position. Interview near the FA Cup. I think when we were playing Newcastle, he said that. I wonder if he knew there was a deal there and just was playing it off it, if you know what I mean.
I personally don't think we'd have offered him new terms.
No.
I think the only reason we've done this is because there's an option on him. Because I was thinking after the final, and look, this is really hard to say when he's played so well in spells this season. But I don't think he's got the legs to be that striker that you rely on anymore. In terms of creativity, I think he's there. I think an option makes sense. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I'm laughing now because you look back at all these interviews that he's had talking about this, and he's always had this cheeky grin on his face when he's talked about it, like this really smug little grin. He's like, "Oh, I don't know. I'd sign a deal if it was put in front of me." Wink, 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 as though he knew that this was the thing anyway. But I almost think that he's now going to take over the sort of backroom Stockdale-esque thing where he just mentors everybody and he's like the wise old sage advice person that everybody goes to and just takes over this changing room role that Stockdale had for us this season. I can see that being him this time round in the Championship. But I wouldn't say keep him on after the end of this option. Yeah.
Simple option extension there. And it also means we never, if there was an option to extend his contract in now, unless it was appearance based, or the thing is, some of these options might have been promotion clauses, like 1 year extension upon promotion, and that's why we didn't really know too much about them. But if it was an optional sort of 1 year by the club sort of thing, if Derby had come in for him like they were in for him, and sort of, we could have just activated that and been like, no, you're here for even longer, so we never had to worry about that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Marvin Johnson, you going to say something before we move on?
Yeah, could this be the thing where Derby go back in for him, even though when we actually make some money off him this time, or knowing that he got
I'd do that.
Maybe that's why they've exercised the option, because we know that he's got League One interest, and we think, well, they can sod and well pay for him.
Yeah,
whatever.
Like 500k for him. That's bargain
business.
Yeah. We've offered a contract to Marvin Johnson. Jake, what do you think about this one?
I didn't see this one. I did not see this one, unless this is appearance based or it's on a promotion thing. I actually thought
it's not though, because we've offered him a contract.
I know
it's not an option.
Yeah. Oh yeah, isn't it? Yeah. I think there's got to be something there that Darren like to see and use in the Championship. I wonder if he's going to go with the whole, he's an experienced pro in this league, you know what he's doing, and then we'll bring someone in younger, then we've got someone who can be mentored. by Johnson to get better. I didn't see it. I didn't see it coming. I had him on the list of players to possibly go, but is he 32 or 33?
He is 32, turning 33, I believe. Let me just double check for you.
He is technically the wrong age of side of 30, but for championship experience, he got it in bags. And I think that probably
32.
makes sense why we got him for that championship experience. And he's shown this season that he can go and do things. The one thing that showed during the promotion parade, he's quite a shy lad. Does it on the pitch, but he's quite a shy lad, quite one that probably keeps himself to himself a little bit. Not one of the vocal ones. So I wonder if you want that. If you got in the squad, you might be able to use the experience on what's going on. Again, using that whole thing, we're going to be doing a blend of experience and youth properly this time.
Jack?
Maybe it's the same thing that you were saying about Fizz. We've just offered him a deal so that we can get a compensation for him when he goes somewhere else.
It's not the same.
Oh, is it not? Oh, the age thing,
no,
right?
it's the age thing with Fizz.
Yeah.
He's, I think it's under 23 and under players as compensation.
Under 23, the 300k compensation, I think, unless they go abroad.
Right. Okay, yeah. So in that case, then maybe it is just an experience-based thing.
I think it's more of a case of he is great to bring.
Like, I'm sorry, Marvin, if you're listening, but I would have let him go.
He can beat a man and he can make things happen. Yeah. I don't think defensively we're going that way. I think we're going to sign a player in that role. But in terms of actually going forward, I think as a squad player, Marvin Johnson is very good for a year. Yeah. I think that's genuinely it. We're giving him a contract as a squad player. And we don't know if he's going to sign it, but I think it makes sense. As a squad player.
Maybe he's great in League One and he can't cut it in the Championship anymore. A bit like, say,
I don't know, because where he left Middles, I think he can as well. I genuinely think he can.
This is where I'm disagreeing with you two. I don't know if he can or not.
Middlesbrough,
I don't think he can.
When he left, they were quite shocked when he went on a free because they were like, we thought we'd have offered him a contract. And then he's come and done 2 good years with us. Yes, defensively, it's not that, but everybody I've spoke to who's seen him play for Borough used to say, if you play him as a left midfielder, still quality. And maybe it's one of those options where we bring him on further forward.
We've seen that. He will get on his day. He will get a man, and I think everyone was very shocked when he came down to League One. Everyone wasn't expecting him to come to League One. I think Darren Moore had that pull, and I think I was shocked by the contract. But now think of it logically, it makes sense. He's an experienced Championship player. When you look at it, he's had 2 seasons in League One. Rest of the time, it's been Championship pretty much.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. Actually, I wasn't fully expecting it, but when I heard it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. The one that we were potentially losing to Hearts was Callum Patterson, but he has been offered a contract, so there's obviously no guarantee he'll sign it. But he was speaking after the celebrations, the town hall celebrations. He was saying that he'd love to stay. He wants to compete at Championship level, and he's glad the club are back there. He says Hearts are in his heart, funnily enough, but and he'd like to play there one day, but he feels like he can still do it at Championship level. So, Jack, do you think he's going to sign this contract, and will it be good for us at Championship level?
Yes. Clearly he's going to be good for us at Championship level because he was instrumental in Cardiff's promotion to the Premier League from the Championship not too long ago. But I also think
while ago now that's the thing. I think that's a bit too far away to say he was. And we've had him in the Championship, and we weren't convinced on him in his first season. It's more of a case of this season in League One, he's been a different player for me.
But again, it's a question of, is he settled here? And if Hearts is in his heart, as he said, maybe the pull of them might be a bit too strong, because I know I've seen a rumour. Like, this is just a rumour, obviously, but there's a rumour floating around that he's bought a house in Scotland. Whether he has or not, in reality, no idea.
But he can afford a second house, though.
I was going to say, he can afford a second house, and if he bought a house in Scotland, maybe thinking just for the future.
Yeah.
He found a house he liked. But, Jake, do you think along the lines of Jack, or do you think it's a done deal for Wednesday and it'll be good for us?
I personally think it's a done deal. I think he's actually very happy here. I personally think it's a done deal. The only thing that could be a factor for us is playtime. How much playtime is he actually going to get in the Championship? where is Darren gonna, like, we know Callum Paterson will play wherever. Christ, if there's an injury in net, he'd probably be the first one to put his hands up and go, I'll have a go in net, kind of thing. He's that kind of player. He's another one of these ones. Morale-wise, he's crucial for that dressing room. Having that morale, he's crucial for it. And I think he's one of the big players. If you let go, you're going to struggle to find someone else to go into that dressing room and fill that boots. The only thing I can see not happening if it's playtime. How much playtime is he going to get on the pitch? But he said he wanted to be in the Championship. He wants to try and have another crack at the Premiership if he can. I think he's only 27, 28. So he's in the prime.
This is the time where you have to say Premier League, because otherwise, if he wants to crack at the Premiership, that is where he would be going, wouldn't it?
Premier League. But if he wants to crack at the Premier League, stay with Wednesday. If you want to go to Premiership, go to Hearts.
Yeah, I think it's a squad player. It's somebody you can bring on and can change a game. He does the dirty work well. He brings down, and I'm sure he's sick of it, but the utility player tag, he is that.
Well, you look at when he came back after injury, he was crucial in those last couple of games. Absolutely crucial, because he did the dirty work no one else wanted to do. And I love him because he's a wind-up merchant. And I think if you have him and Volks on the pitch at the same time, you've seen it. They both at the same time, they've both got that same wind-up thing. They'll want to wind the same player up, and they don't know which way it's coming from. And it's a joy to watch.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great move to just keep him for at least another year, but maybe it's a 2-year deal. I could see a 2-year deal as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. So Sheffield Wednesday squad, barring a couple of potential mistakes, looks like this in net after the retain list. Dawson and Charles are in net. Then our back three, you've got Famio, Awekwe, and then Iorfa/Brennan. The positions aren't accurate on this fully, but you basically 4 defenders in a back three, so that's going to be somewhere we definitely strengthen. You've got Johnson and Palmer as the only sort of recognised fullback. We've got no recognised fullback at the club at the minute.
No.
So that's a big thing. Left back specifically. You've got in the midfield, Deli Basharu, Byers, Volks, and then obviously Bannon can play there. You've got Backinson. Midfield's still quite bloated. Do we transfer this Backinson? Is that something that happens?
Yes.
I think it's something that happens as well, because I don't think he's getting enough starts, and I don't think it'll work for him, but we'll see. Then you've got Patterson, who can play in that attacking midfield role, sort of. Windass can play there as well. You got Wilkes, who is sort of a striker/winger, but we never play winger, so we'll put him as a striker. And then up top, you've got Gregory and Smith, with Windass potentially playing there as well. So for me, there, your fullbacks are essential. You need you need a couple more players in midfield, I think, personally. Some experience. You need at least 2 more centre backs. You need a goalkeeper to either push Dawson or be the number 1. And then you definitely need a striker. Now, would you sign Reece James as that fullback?
No.
Or a centre back? You wouldn't sign him, would you?
No.
Why is that?
Because he's shown time and time again with Sunderland, with Wigan, with Blackpool, that he can crack it in League One, and he's great in League One, but he can't cut it in the Championship. He's shown it with 3 separate clubs.
It's rubbish! Because I keep seeing this on Twitter, and I'm not saying it's you, Jack, but I keep seeing this on Twitter. We have just had a fantastic season with us where he's played under a manager, and he's played better than he probably has for those clubs in quite some time. That is what a loan spell does, right? That Blackpool team I'm sick of seeing people go, oh, well, a Blackpool, why would if Blackpool, they've got relegated and they don't want him at League One level, why would we want him at Championship level? Because he's played bloody well for us. Right? And he seems to fit in this core and this dynamic. And I don't understand why people think just because previous stats of a player, like, oh, well, he didn't cut it then, that specifically means he's not going to cut it in a completely different scenario. Look at all the players that leave Sheffield Wednesday and do really, really well at different levels. Reece James plays really well in this squad. He believes in the manager. He spoke about his work with him previously at Doncaster Rovers, and he's worked under Darren Moore. He's now stepping up a level where I think his performances have been fantastic this season. Reece James is a no-brainer for me in terms of the count. And I am just tired of people saying, well, why wouldn't Blackpool want him? He probably wouldn't fit that because it'd be a different dynamic and it'd probably actually reset some of the progress and the form and momentum that Reece James has currently got if he went back there. It would make more sense for us to pick him up at a slightly reduced deal in my eyes. Jack, do you want to retort on that or let Jake go? And then you can come back to it.
I'll collect my thoughts and I'll let Jake go.
Okay.
I think Reece James would be a cracking signing. He wouldn't cost too much. He's in the last year of the deal. You've got someone who already knows what Darren Moore's system is. He already knows all the coaching staff. He's worked with them already. Yes, the times in the Championship, Wigan, 0 appearances. Blackpool, 17. Yes, he's not had many spells in Championship, but he's 29. And I think a 29-year-old in that kind of thing who got experience, and he's been so pivotal in our going up this season. It's so interesting to see how it's all been and how we get on from there, because at the end of the day, if Darren Moore got the best out of him in League One, what do you think Darren Moore could do with him in the Championship? This is my thing. The key,
and he doesn't
here,
have to be a starter either, does he? No. Necessarily. I mean, he will be. I think as a centre-back, actually, he offers us quite some... You know, in that middle of that... on the side of that centre-back, he's the one that you feel like can run forward and then also get back. You know, he's the one I don't worry about in that back line, apart from when he tires. And when every player starts to tire.
If you think
I think he's better than Iorfa.
Yeah, but what I'm saying...
At the minute...
That's the thing, but you need two players who are going to come back. The one thing we said about the Championship, it's going to be fast, and we're going to need players to go back when they go forward. He's ideal for it.
Yeah. I do think that it's one of those situations where it's not worked for him at Blackpool. Not much has worked at Blackpool this season, you know, and they loaned him out. And now he's had... It's just all about the right environment for him, and I think Darren Moore is that manager. Because if you look at it, he played his best football at Doncaster under him, and he's playing his best football again under him at Sheffield Wednesday. And I think it's one of those situations where, for once, a player lines up really, really well with the club and the current situation with the management. But Jack, your thoughts adding to that?
I will say, had he been 24 and not 29, I would have signed him. But because he's 29... and effectively, he's passing his peak of footballing ability on average. The average, I think, of players being at their peak is like 27 to 29,
This ain't Football
30.
Manager, though. That's the difference, right? We all think players that pass 29 on Football Manager, they're a bit too old. But in terms of this, if you think... We're talking about a 37-year-old Jamie Vardy potentially coming back and us all being like, oh, yeah, he'd do a job. Because that's true. It depends on the peak, doesn't it? And where they're at. Actually, realistically, if you look at stats, Reece James could potentially very easily have another 2 years of peak football before he starts to go on the decline, if you were to look at the average. So it's one of those where I go, does the versatility not swing it for you? The fact he can play left wing back and centre back, and we've got a player there that can do both.
Also think we don't have much in that position when he plays the position he played this season.
Yeah. Does that not swing it for you slightly, Jack, the positioning and the versatility of him with that?
No. No.
Fair enough.
Because if you look... What does everybody always say about Dwight Gale? Has always said about Dwight Gale. Fantastic for the Championship, but can't cut it in the Premier League. That can apply to players further down the pyramid. And at the same time as well, why would Blackpool now let him go when the manager that signed him for Blackpool has just returned to the job of Blackpool? And oh look, he's done really well at getting a team out of League One. They will want to get out of League One. Why would they get rid of him?
Well, if they do get rid of him, I think it's more of a case of the swing of the fact he's bought into the squad here, and Blackpool will need money and balance in the books a little bit more because they've been relegated.
But at the same time, how much of this decision making is nostalgia based? I feel like a lot of this is riding the high of this is part of the squad that got us out of League One again.
I'm going.
I get you. I don't think that's the case with Reece James. Yeah, I also think it's the fact that he signed a 3-year deal. And he's into his last year. So financially, it's either, if it doesn't work out at Blackpool for him this season, he either leaves on a free or they cash in on him this season. And that's why it adds up for me. They try and take it, they get a small fee for him from Wednesday right now. It just makes business sense. No, it's interesting to have the counter argument there.
Where do you see Reece James in 3 to 4 years' time? Because that's what we need to be thinking about. That's what Darren Moore wants to think about.
I see Reece James here for 2 to 3 years. I see in 3-4 years, I see him on his way out at Wednesday. But for in the time between now and then, I see him at Wednesday and doing a job. So
it's one of the 1 year of being the right side of 30.
That doesn't specifically matter. That really doesn't matter. It depends on your shape and your conditioning. Reece James doesn't play like a 20, like he's losing anything. If you look at his pace and you look at his work rate and you look at his stamina levels. So I don't understand why we'd be concerned that he's going to hit a 3 at the start of his age in the next year. That's not a concern to me, especially when it really isn't in the position he plays in. Especially the fact if he does convert fully to centre back, centre backs can go on and on and on if they keep fit. So
Jack, and also your whole thing on age, Palmer 33.
Exactly.
You wouldn't be saying right now, get rid of Liam Palmer, would you?
Well, probably not, no, but Liam Palmer's done more this season for me. He's looked a step above. He's looked like he shouldn't have been in a League One team. Reece James looked like a promotion-chasing League One player.
I don't agree. But if that's your opinion, that's fair. No, it's interesting. I think he's the right fit for us at this time, personally. But we'll see what happens.
I think it will be very difficult for Blackpool to let him go on the thing. He just got up with a promotion-winning team, and I think having the manager there that signed him will help him stay. I think the thing is with Blackpool, they've had such a stupid season with what's happened off the field. With manager galore. Like he said halfway through the season, I haven't spoke to anyone at Blackpool at all. Like full stop. So having that thing, I think he will stay, but I think we'll try and put a deal in place, but I think they'll turn it down.
Fair enough. We'll see what happens. Right, this episode has gone on longer than I expected for that, which is great because we've got that. So we're going to do all of our main transfer scouting stuff next week, and we'll add to it, and we'll see if any of our suggestions that we've already written down this week have gone, basically. But what I would like to do is go into the news. There's only one news item I want to speak about this week, and it's the fact that Alan Nixon has linked us with a return for Bailey Peacock-Farrell. Now, what are your initial thoughts on Bailey Peacock-Farrell coming back to Wednesday, Jake?
I'm in two minds because and it sounds like it would be a loan. That doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense to me because that says to me that you don't trust Dawson in the Championship, and he's earned that. He's earned to have that experience and play there.
I personally think Bailey was as flappy, if you think about that he's behind you, as Dawson makes the odd mistake, and Dawson's our own player. So the loan doesn't make any sense.
I'd rather bring in an experience. Either you bring in an experienced pro a la like a Stockdale, or you're bringing in a youngster that you're going to own and develop, kind of thing. A loan for Bailey Peacock-Farrell just doesn't make sense. It only makes sense on the terms that he worked at Wednesday, worked with the coaching staff before, he worked with Dan Moore. That's the only bit of it that makes sense for me.
Jack, your thoughts on Bailey Peacock-Farrell coming back potentially on loan?
I agree with Jake there. It doesn't make sense because it's like you're just taking all of your trust away from Dawson. You don't think he can cut it anymore suddenly, even though I thought when he went on the loan to Exeter that he seemed like he was a Championship goalkeeper that was just in a League Two side for the sake of getting his confidence back up, because that's the biggest thing that has always been Dawson's issue, is playing with confidence. Like Iorfa, he needs a bit of an arm round the shoulder, I think, a lot of the time, to just get his confidence up with playing, because when he plays with confidence, he's great. And I think it's all Dawson's to lose, and I'm sort of in the opinion where Dawson is now the sensible, because he's 27, 28 now.
Yeah.
So I think that Dawson's now that experienced goalkeeper who is the not Stockdale, obviously, because Stockdale's like got 10 years on him, but Dawson is now the age to be the experienced goalkeeper. And I say we bring in like a 22 to 24-year-old goalkeeper that's near enough the same ability level as Dawson, who is going to be the goalkeeper after Dawson.
I have just had a theory, though. Dawson is in the last year of the contract. Are we planning on cashing in?
Interestingly, so is Bailey Peacock Farrell. So if it is a loan there, it's one of those things where you could potentially see a deal happening there, that we see Bailey maybe as our new keeper, because Darren Moore enjoyed working with him.
Yeah.
It's a very odd one if you keep Dawson to bring Bailey Peacock Farrell back. It is a very odd one. And does he believe in Dawson? Dawson's had back-to-back promotions. Dawson's probably earned a chance to cut it in the Championship. Does
They're
he bring
very similar
Bailey?
as well, aren't they? When you think of playing
Yeah.
style.
Oh, yeah.
Would you say Bailey Peacock Farrell's a little bit better with his feet? And that
No.
may be the thing?
No, Dawson
No.
better with feet.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why all of it adds up of like, because I'd also say Dawson's a better shot stopper.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of is if we're going to cash in on Dawson because he's in his last year.
As a sellable asset.
Could we
thing.
never
But
done-
Dawson
We've
would
never done
easily,
that.
but Dawson would easily sign another deal. Dawson wants to stay at this boyhood club. He's pushed through and he's won promotion with us. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'd have him back if it's a loan. It's sort of a backup option. But if it's a loan, here's my final line on Bailey Peacock Farrell. If it's a loan that pushes Dawson out of the squad for no apparent reason, then what is the point? If it's a case of Darren Moore fancies him as our first team keeper over Dawson for whatever, I don't necessarily agree, but I think Bailey Peacock Farrell, there's a hell of a player in there. If he can find some, regular game time, he'd have that with us. So I'd be willing to accept it if it was a permanent deal. A loan just makes no sense.
The only thing for me is if he's comfortable with turning around and saying that you're going to be on the bench, which I don't think a loan would be, and I don't think Burnley is like that.
That's exactly it.
The deal, to be honest with you, where he should go, and it shouldn't be us, he should go back to Leeds. They need another keeper.
Bit of a gamble for Leeds, that, though, because Leeds are one of trying to go straight back up, aren't they? So,
Yeah, but they've got parachute payment to pay it.
yeah. No, he's coming into his last year of contract. They've got an option on him. Be really
It's a
interesting
weird
to see
one.
what they do with that.
It's a weird
I don't
one.
think he didn't leave Leeds in a very good way either, so I don't think that'd be on the cards, to be honest. Right. The one thing I do want to talk about is, because we've talked about the keeper in the news, we've talked about Bailey Peacock Farrell potentially returning. We've all been doing our scouting. I want us to all pitch a keeper that we think either may happen or we've been mildly linked with, or just someone we think that would be great for us even if we don't think it'll necessarily happen. So a speculation topic, but with some sort of quite a bit of research in there, but also a potential bit of background knowledge. So I'm going to start with Jake. Pitch me one of your keepers, please.
Josh Griffiths from West Brom had an excellent...
We've spoken about him a lot.
We spoke about him a bit. He had an excellent season the following season with Lincoln. Really good. 21. He just broken into West Brom's first team and didn't do that badly, to be fair. Now, the thing here, he's only 21, but West Brom are in a financial mess. They're going to have to sell some assets. And this is someone who we could pick up really cheap in that young keeper role to mould into being one of the net keepers. Granted, you want to have another experienced pro, but we got that in Dawson. I go after Josh Griffith because he's 21. We can mould him. He's shown what he can do in League One. He's looked okay in the Championship so far. And I think it's one that if you're thinking about resale value and stuff like that, this one makes sense.
But you just said he's their first team keeper. Would he not just be their first team keeper?
I think they'll get another first team keeper. The thing is, I think you got with West Brom this season, they have got a new manager in, but they have to clear the books. They are not in a good way financially. I think they're going to have to sell some assets to bring in.
I would personally counter argument and say if you're in that situation, you keep hold of your younger players and you try and ship out your older ones that would be more of your sellable assets while you can. Josh Griffiths is probably one that you keep and develop for the future, especially if you're going to chuck him in net and keep him in there. So I think I understand why he'd be a great signing for us in terms of the potential and the age, but I think West Brom would make more sense if they're in financial trouble specifically. I would take the counter argument of he's the one you probably keep hold of. Thoughts on Josh Griffiths, Jack?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one that I'd throw in the ring is the guy that's been on loan at MK Dons the last season and a half, Jamie Cumming, who is technically Chelsea's player, but he's been there on loan, obviously. And do you not remember last season? I say last season. I mean the season where we lost to Sunderland in the playoffs. He was absolutely ridiculous. Like they were touting him as the best goalkeeper in the league the season before last, and he's effectively been a shining light in the dismal season that MK Dons have had this season just gone. And his current market value is circa around £1 million according to Transfermarkt. So it's not like a total reliable source, shall we say. But
yeah, it's valuation,
He's made 54 appearances in 2022 to 23, keeping 11 clean sheets and conceding 77 goals. Now, he only conceded that many goals because the defence in front of him were absolutely atrocious, which is why they've got relegated. It's a bit like us being absolutely atrocious and having Kieran Westwood in the net. Like,
my argument for you would be you talked about Championship. Maybe so, but are you talking about this person who starts or pushes Dawson? That'll be a big thing.
Pushes Dawson.
That makes more sense because what you were saying earlier about Reece James. What you were saying earlier about Reece James was the fact that he's never stepped up. This guy's only played in League 2 and League 1. So in terms of actually having the Championship experience, he is not that. So if he did come in and was potentially the future, that would make a lot of sense. Let me just try and find out about his contract.
He's 23 years old, so he's like the long-term backup. Backup for now behind Dawson, but in the long term, he will be the future definite number one because he's got a lot of potential.
It's interesting to see.
You've really got a chip on your shoulder that I'm so anti-sign Reece James, haven't you, James?
I just wasn't expecting a lack of footballing knowledge on my podcast.
Oh, yeah?
No, I'm joking. His contract's up.
So it'll be free.
And he's 23. So we wouldn't have to pay a mandatory fee for him either.
My only thing with that is he's a free agent and MK Dons need a keeper. I think he's going to MK Dons.
They've just dropped.
Yeah, but it's Championship versus League 2,
Haven't they just dropped? Did they get relegated?
They've just dropped to League 2.
They got relegated to League 2, but they're going to throw a bit of cash at it, I reckon.
I'm telling you, pick up Jamie. We'd have to pay Compo to Chelsea's 23.
Yeah.
If they've offered him a deal. But basically, so apparently, reading here, Man City are looking to bring him into their youth setup. So Football League World have been talking about that. There might be interest from Bolton in him, which would actually be a good move for Jamie coming. But if we're looking at a young player to push Dawson, yeah, I'd 100% agree with that. Especially if we can get him on a free with a bit of compo, 300, 400k, that'd be a decent signing. It makes sense. That's the kind of player you want, actually.
I do have football knowledge, James. See?
I was being facetious. Here's a player that I think would be the ideal situation if you are replacing Dawson, right? So we've covered every end of the spectrum. Marek Rodak, Fulham. He is the epitome of a player who plays for them when they get relegated to the Championship and does really well, and then never starts and sits on the bench in the Prem. He is 26 years old. He is 6'4". Last season, he was on the bench pretty much for them all season. The season before that, when in the Championship, he kept 14 clean sheets in 33 Championship appearances. The season before that, they were in the Prem. He was on the bench all season again. The season before that, he spent... he was with Rotherham in the Championship. 33 appearances, 14 clean sheets again.
I was going to say, I thought that name sounded familiar.
He is apparently, like, if you look at his sort of Google value, transfer market value, that sort of thing, it says around 3.5 million. The problem is, what I'm reading a lot online is because he's lost his place to Leno, and it looks like Leno will stay at Fulham and be in that, that number one keeper. Rodak is at that age at 26 where he wants to be first team choice somewhere. So I reckon if we were being serious about this and we really wanted a new goalkeeper, he would make sense to me.
Yeah.
He would be a quality. I think he would actually, funnily enough, you were talking about Leeds. He'd be a fantastic signing for Leeds in terms of a new goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But if we could, I think a player of his caliber at his age, if we're looking for a first team goalkeeper, he'd be a shout. Any thoughts on that one, Jake?
I think that's a good shout, actually, because he's at the right age. He's already done it at Championship, so he's already got the Championship experience, so we're not having that kind of, let's see what happens. I think it's the right age for someone to push Dawson, and you've got that experienced pro just in case we need it, which means then we can help develop Charles. This one actually makes a lot of sense in terms of it, and you probably could get him on a decent deal because I can't see him wanting much.
I could see them wanting a couple of million, but it's also a case of if we are going for it, a couple of million on a player like that makes more sense to me than the older signings we would have made.
Oh, yeah.
Jack?
And if you say this is the scenario where we cash in on Dawson and replace Dawson, then I think we can get about 2 million for Dawson from somebody like a Huddersfield or somebody like that, around that sort of ilk of club. Then that effectively pays for Rodak, I guess. But again, like, he's 26, so that's also a sort of age where we can give him like a 5-year deal. And again, right, this is a fun thing that I've just thought about. Why don't we give players a 5-year deal or something like that, even if we don't want to bring them to term, because then they'll sell for more. If they've got a good few years left on the deal.
Here's the danger with that, Jack. You players will run down contracts.
We've done that in the past.
Yeah.
I think it's a terrible idea, actually. Sorry, mate. You've been in for some pelters this episode. But in terms of...
Oh, yeah, sorry, because the players themselves have got to get their agents to find them a new club and get them interest and all that crap, haven't they?
And they can decide they just want to sit on their wage and not do anything. Yeah, and be happy not playing, and then you've got a bloated squad.
Yeah.
I think the best way to go is shorter contracts with options, and that's what we've been doing. Our transfer strategy in that regard has been a lot better recently. But, I picked out Marek Rodak because he was one that I've always noticed in the past few seasons. He's just not played in the Prem, but he's been in that Fulham squad, right?
I mean, Christ,
and then he comes down to the champion he plays.
He's been the number one for Fulham in the Championship, and they've got promoted with him.
Exactly.
Once, if not more than that. So he's got the championship promotion experience.
Also,
and he's played in the area with Rotherham.
10th place as well.
Yeah.
They cemented themselves as a kind of Premier League team this year. So they'll have a bit more money to spend.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it would make perfect sense. I do think he would potentially go to a top-end Championship club. We want to be that, but are we that straight away? No, of course not. There's work to be put in firsthand, so it'll be interesting to see what happened with him. But that is just a taster of what we were going to be doing over the next few episodes in terms of players. I actually think there's some good suggestions there. I could potentially see Rodak and Cummings working together, actually. Them two signing together, because younger player, experienced player, bring them in and see what happens. I think you wouldn't sign Griffiths at the same time because you'd actually end up costing a bit of money as well. But yeah, guys, I'm going to start with Jack. Jack, have you got anything to add on this episode of Talking Wednesday before we wrap up? Because that's about all I've got.
No. I think I've covered everything that I would have said, really. Other than the rest of the transfers, obviously, but that will be a future episode. So
yes, we're already an hour and a half in. It's quite a long episode.
Yeah.
And as much as I'd love to go for 3 hours, we've got plenty of episodes to do. We don't need to rush. Got plenty to talk about this summer.
It's a long old summer.
Indeed. Jake?
I just want to say thank you for all the people who congratulated me and my family and all the people who supported the podcast and both our channels over this season. It's been really good to see both channels grow at the same pace. And it's nice to see there's a Wednesday section on YouTube because it was lonely for a while.
Yeah. Punk was the OG on that. And now I'm starting to do more videos. The channel... The algorithm is liking it. I'm enjoying doing it. And it's nice to be able to see the support on things. What's nice to be able to see is the fact that our audiences overlap. We can do I've noticed this week specifically, we can do a video on the same subject, but we'll have the same people in both comment sections. And that just goes to show the Talking Wednesday community now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people talking on both videos. And that's what's been really nice to see building up through that. But yeah, that has been it for this week's episode of Talking Wednesday. We will... see you in the next one. So
I just want to shout out the 3 or 4 people that have come from the Talking Wednesday audience to my Twitch channel. I love all 4 of you. Anyway, yes, there you go. Just if we were saying
there you go.
for audience members, but there we go. Thank you, all of you.
You don't even stream on Twitch anymore because you bought a computer that breaks all the time. But yes, that is it for this week's episode of Talking Wednesday. Take care, and we will see you in the next episode of Talking Wednesday.
See ya.
See you later.